My brother sold everything after Dad died, until karma made him come home. When Dad died, grief didn't decide who got what. My brother did. He stood in the living room with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. Relatives watched him move through Dad's things like a banker sorting assets. Nobody stopped him. Nobody even blinked. My name is Arden Hale. I was 24 and working part-time tech support back then. In my family, that meant I was stable. Stable meant I didn't get resources. Stable meant I didn't get help. Stable meant I would survive anything they didn't feel like dealing with. My brother Mason called himself the head of the family before the funeral flowers wilted. He sold Dad's vintage cars first, a '79 BMW and a truck that smelled like engine grease and summer weekends. Men with cash shook his hand and called him boss. They didn't look at me at all. Next came the shop. Dad's pride. Tools, machines, metal, memories, liquidated for business reasons. My mother nodded along. Aunts whispered that Mason was handling everything. Handling everything didn't include me. When the house went up for sale, I asked where I was supposed to go. Mason said it calmly, without tears or hesitation. "You'll manage. You always do." He was right. I did, just not in the way he expected. The house sold in 31 days. Good schools, quiet street. Buyers waved contracts around like they were buying victory instead of shelter. Mason kept every dollar. I watched money that didn't belong to him slide into accounts that didn't include me. 1 week later, he booked a one-way ticket to Dubai. Relatives clapped like he'd earned a scholarship. My mother packed him sandwiches for the airport. No one asked if I needed a ride to my new place. My new place was a room above a laundromat, single window, rusted radiator, walls that smelled like detergent and hot metal. I lay on the mattress the first night and realized I hadn't had time to miss Dad. Logistics had replaced loss. Mason posted rooftop photos within days. Cocktails, gold watches, friends with sunglasses, and no last names. Captions like, "building something big," and "Dad would have been proud." I didn't comment. I didn't correct him. Proud wasn't the word Dad would have used. Concerned, maybe. Worried, definitely. Pride takes more than travel and confidence. It takes responsibility. Weeks turned into months. Months into a year. Mason stopped posting as often. Success is loud. Failure goes quiet. My mother called twice a month. Not to ask about work. To tell me where Mason was next. "Thailand," she said once. "Doing amazing things." Amazing. Didn't pay the invoices I covered. By year 2, Mason became a myth. Always somewhere, always almost landing a deal, always one meeting away from greatness. Aunt repeated his stories like scripture. Men admired him for taking risks. Women admired him for having plans. Nobody noticed he never executed either. Meanwhile, I worked. First help desk. Then, a junior analyst. Then it felt like solving puzzles with pressure on the clock. The job came with night classes, certifications, and caffeine. Nobody clapped for my victories. Nobody posted about my promotions. I didn't need them to. My mother called when she needed paperwork sorted, or utilities negotiated, or insurance explained. Those tasks didn't go to Mason. The golden child got admiration. The stable child got responsibility. "Your brother has more on his plate," she said once. "What plate?" I asked. She paused. "He's trying to succeed." Trying was enough for him. Results were demanded from me. When my company offered relocation to Texas, salary bump, signing bonus benefits, I didn't ask for permission. I packed 2 suitcases and left. Texas didn't care about family hierarchy. Texas cared about skill. My first paycheck felt unreal. Money earned without guilt tastes different. It tastes like freedom. My mother didn't say congratulations. She said, "Don't forget to call." She didn't worry that I would fail. She assumed I'd manage. Texas hardened me, but in the best way. People respected what I knew, not who I was. My boss asked if I could secure a network under pressure. He didn't ask if I was the older or younger sibling. He didn't ask about children. He didn't ask if I was stable. Stability wasn't a badge here. It was currency. I learned how to invest, how to negotiate offers, and how to calculate stock vesting without panic. I rented an apartment with walls that didn't smell like detergent and ceilings that didn't drip. Silence became a luxury, not a punishment. My mother called one Sunday. "Have you heard from Mason?" she asked. "No. He's in Bali now, doing very well." Doing very well wasn't a status. It was a placeholder for a lack of detail. I didn't ask what was very well meant. I'd learned that when families talk about sons, words are scored differently. Effort for him meant achievement. Achievement for me meant expected. Months passed, my job title changed again. Security lead. Bigger projects, bigger stakes. My salary grew the way trees grow. Slow, steady, undeniable. One night after work, I sat on my balcony and realized something simple and terrifying. I had survived without being chosen. It wasn't spite. It was math. And math doesn't play favorites. Year 3 began and ended without Mason returning home. Relatives stopped bragging about him. My mother changed her tone. He hasn't posted in a while. He isn't answering messages. He's busy, she said less confidently. Busy turns to silent fast. Then on a cold Tuesday at 6:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Foreign code. I answered because curiosity outruns resentment in the first 5 seconds. Static. Breath. Then, Arden. It's Mason. No apology, no greeting. Just my name, stripped of arrogance. I need help. Those 3 words hit harder than any inheritance he stole. Not because he asked, because he never imagined he'd need to. Mason didn't talk right away. Pride makes men slow when asking for help. He coughed into the phone and said, "Things got complicated." Complicated was a soft word. Soft words hide sharp realities. I asked where he was. Back home, he said, at Mom's. He didn't say why. He didn't have to. Nobody travels home when they're winning. Home is where you land when every other runway shuts down. I drove over after work. Mom opened the door with swollen eyes. She hugged me tighter than usual, like grief had shape again. Mason sat at the kitchen table surrounded by envelopes, bank statements, overdue notices, credit lines, invoices with red stamps. Travel doesn't pay for itself, neither do fantasies. Mom poured him coffee and ran her hand down his back like he was 12. He needs time, she said. Time wasn't the problem. Time only exposes the problem. I asked, where's the money from the house? From the cars? From the shop? Mason's jaw clenched. He whispered, gone. No story. No excuses. Just gone. Mom shot me a look, the kind mothers give daughters when sons are fragile. In that moment, I learned something important. In our family, loss wasn't shared. It was shielded. For him. The next day, relatives came over, not to check on Mom, to ask about Mason. Men stood around the kitchen island talking about market crashes and bad timing. Women whispered, he tried his best. The sympathy was thick enough to cut. No one asked where I'd been for 3 years. No one asked how Texas was. I wasn't the headline. I was the afterthought. At dinner, Mom served Mason a full plate and gave me a half spoon of rice without noticing. She said, "You're watching your weight anyway, right?" The table laughed. Humiliation doesn't need volume. It just needs witnesses. Mason pushed his food around and sighed loudly. "People don't take risks anymore," he said, like the world was at fault. One uncle nodded. "Building a business overseas is brave." Brave wasn't the word. Unsupervised was. Mom finally said the line I'd been waiting for. "Your sister will help you get back on your feet." She didn't ask me. She assigned me. Helpers don't get opinions. Helpers get tasks. I took a sip of water and didn't argue. You don't debate assignments. You let people reveal themselves. Mason smiled weakly, as if rescue was already in progress. That's the thing about sons raised on expectation. They never consider a scenario where the daughter says no. A week passed before Mason told the full story, or as full as pride would allow. The deals in Dubai never closed. His partners in Thailand were drinking buddies with business cards. The Bali investors were tourists pretending to be moguls. It was all smoke, light, and borrowed confidence. "What about the house money?" I asked. He rubbed his eyes. "Expenses. Cars, flights, hotels, networking." Networking was the expensive cousin of denial. "Did you save anything?" I asked. He shook his head. "You don't understand how fast money moves when you're building something." I did understand. I just didn't rescue. Mom wiped her tears. "He needs support, Arden." She didn't say financial support. She didn't need to. Support in our family meant I carried the weight so the golden child didn't bruise. I stood up. "I can't fix this for him." Mason looked shocked, not angry, shocked. In his world, sisters didn't set boundaries. They just stretched. Mom stared at me as if I'd broken a rule older than both of us, but I didn't break anything. I just stopped subsidizing. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 days. Silence is her favorite punishment. Silence assumes guilt. When she finally called, her voice was smaller. "Your brother is trying. He's applying to jobs." Trying was a verb reserved for sons. Daughters didn't try. Daughters performed. "What kind of jobs?" I asked. Big ones, she said quickly. Tech startups, international companies. I waited for the truth. Also the tire shop and the deli. There it was. Failure shrinks ambition faster than poverty ever will. I asked, "What do you want from me?" Mom took a breath. "A loan." There was no number attached. Mothers who protect sons avoid numbers. Numbers make fantasies collapse. I said, "I worked for everything I have." She whispered, "He's your brother." As if blood were a contract I had signed. Silence held for a long time. Then she added the line that sealed the pattern. "You're stable, Arden. You'll be fine." In our family, stability wasn't celebrated. Stability was taxed. I didn't give them a loan. I didn't give them money. I didn't explain myself. I just kept living. Work promoted me again. Better salary, equity, health benefits that didn't punish women for not having children. The HR director said, "We're betting on you long term." Nobody had ever bet on me before. I bought a small condo near the office. Clean, modern, paid with savings nobody knew existed. When I sent my mother the address, she said, "You're so independent." Independent meant I didn't drain them. Independent meant I didn't matter. Meanwhile, Mason pulled shifts at the deli, wiping tables in a shirt that used to fit better. People who once toasted him on rooftops pretended not to recognize him. One afternoon, I saw Mom and Mason standing outside the tire shop. He lit a cigarette. She looked away to hide the shame. Shame doesn't announce itself, it just rearranges posture. For the first time, Mason looked at me differently. Not as backup, not as the audience, as proof that survival isn't luck, it's discipline. Relatives stopped bragging about Mason. They shifted the narrative the way families do when history becomes inconvenient. He's just figuring things out. He was too ambitious. Travel changes a person. None of them mentioned the shop, the house, or the cars. Loss fades fastest when it comes from the favored child. Meanwhile, they asked me about Texas like it was a hobby. "You still working with computers? You're doing cybersecurity, is that safe?" They said safe like it was boring, like survival was unremarkable. At dinner my aunt whispered, "It's different for men. They take risks," as if women were built for damage control. Mom carved roast chicken and pretended not to hear. Mason kept his head down, scrolling job boards on his cracked phone. The same relatives who once praised his ambition now avoided eye contact. Approval is never permanent. When dessert came, Uncle Mark asked Mason, "What's next for you?" Mason shrugged. "Not sure." 4 years ago, that answer would have earned applause for bravery. Now it landed like disappointment. Silence filled the room until Aunt Nora looked at me and asked, "And you, Arden, what's next for you?" Simple question, loaded moment. I smiled. I already started. That was the switch. Not revenge, just reality catching up. Mom called me at 7 a.m. sharp, too early for casual concern. "Your brother is struggling again," she said. Struggling was a word they saved for him. When I struggled, it was called adulthood. I asked how things were at home. She sighed. "He sleeps a lot. He doesn't eat much. He keeps applying." "What's he applying to?" "All sorts of places," she said. "Tech jobs, sales, consulting, anything really." "Does he have experience in those?" She hesitated. "He has charm. Charm fades faster than job prospects." Then came the ask. Not for money this time, for proximity. "Could you talk to him?" she asked. "You're good with work things." Work things were her way of describing a career she never fully understood. I agreed to a call, not to rescue, to observe. That night, Mason answered on the second ring. His voice was thin. "You busy?" "Always," I said. We talked about resumes, interviews, and salaries. He listened for once. I realized something then. He wasn't entitled anymore. He was scared. Fear levels men faster than humility ever will. Before hanging up, he said, "I'm glad you made it out." Out. Not up. Language reveals what people envy. Mom tried to hide the change, but families always reveal hierarchy at the dinner table. This time she served me first. Not intentionally. Reflexively, like her brain updated the ranking overnight. Mason noticed. He didn't say anything, but he saw it. Dethronement is rarely loud. During the meal, I asked questions about utilities, mortgage, and overdue taxes. I wasn't being nosy. I was tracking consequence. Mason finally snapped. "You sound like Dad," he said. Dad didn't say much, but he kept receipts. Financial ones, emotional ones, legacy ones. Mom looked down at her plate. "Your father worked hard for this house," she said quietly. "He did. And Mason sold everything around it like memory was a marketplace." After dinner, Mason followed me to the driveway. "You're doing well," he said, staring at the asphalt. I worked for it. I know, he said. I thought things would be easier for me. Of course he did. Ease was his native language. Effort was mine. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I'm not asking for help. He didn't have to. He already had. Weeks passed and winter hit hard. Mason got hired at a warehouse. Seasonal contract, minimum wage, no benefits. Mom cried when he told her. She didn't cry when I got promoted. Tears followed sons. Promotions followed daughters in silence. Mason woke up at 4 a.m., rode buses in freezing air, and came home smelling like sweat and cardboard. That job taught him things travel never did. How to clock in, how to clock out, how to answer to someone else. One night, he collapsed on the couch, boots still on. Mom covered him with a blanket. I watched from the doorway. Golden children get tucked in, even when they're 30. Later, he whispered, "Do you ever feel like no one expects anything from you anymore?" It wasn't self-pity, it was disorientation. When the spotlight leaves, some people don't know how to stand. I told him the truth. Expectations don't matter, outputs do. He looked at me the way people look at closed doors, not angry, just unprepared. He had spent his 20s chasing applause. I spent mine building leverage. One pays quickly, the other pays late. Spring came early. I visited home and found Mason in the garage sorting old tools, Dad's tools, the ones he never tried to sell. Some items resist liquidation. Some items hold weight no appraiser can measure. Mason didn't look up. "Warehouse, let me go," he said. "Season's over." He said it like weather, nothing personal, just forecasting. "What now?" He shrugged. "Maybe trucking, maybe a security guard, I don't know." He waited for my pity. I didn't offer any. Then he surprised me. "You got into cybersecurity, right? Think you could show me some basics? Not networking, not overseas deals, not fantasy startups, basics." I nodded. "If you take it seriously." "I will," he said. "For once, no performative confidence. Just necessity." Everyone thinks revenge is destruction. They assume the villain must burn. But the real power isn't fire. It's a reversal. The brother who once locked me out of our father's house now stood in the cold, asking me for tools to rebuild his life. Balance always arrives, just slower than pride expects. We started small. I set Mason free online courses and labs for cybersecurity fundamentals. Nothing advanced, just ports, protocols, passwords, and the concept of threat models. He printed worksheets like a kid cramming for finals. I didn't tease him. Effort is rare enough in grown men, it shouldn't be mocked. Mom hovered during our sessions, bringing snacks and praise. "He's always been good with computers," she said. He wasn't. But praise was her currency, and Mason was always rich in it. 3 weeks passed. Mason asked questions. Real ones. Why would someone hack a school district? Why target hospitals? Why ransomware instead of theft? Curiosity signaled something better than ambition. Humility. It looked good on him, even if it arrived late. Then came the test. I asked him to run reconnaissance on his own Wi-Fi. He failed twice. On the third night he texted at 2:14 a.m., "Got it." I smiled in the dark, not because he succeeded, because he finally earned something. Mom bragged about his progress to relatives. "He's learning cybersecurity," she said. They nodded politely. None of them asked where I worked or what title I held. Daughters don't get headlines, we get footnotes. But I didn't correct her. Silence can be generous, too. Relatives came for Easter. The house smelled like ham and pineapple, old traditions clinging to new circumstances. Mason set the table quietly. "Last year he wasn't here to set anything." Uncle Mark asked, "So what's Mason up to now?" His tone was cautious. The family had stopped betting on him. Mom jumped in. "He's studying cybersecurity. It's intense stuff." Her voice carried hope like a lottery ticket. Mark nodded and looked at me. "Is that legit?" "Yes," I said. "It pays. And it lasts." The room absorbed that. Money always changes the pitch of a conversation. Mason didn't look up. He didn't need to. Status doesn't announce its return. It sneaks in and sits at the table as it belongs there. After dinner, I caught Mason smoking outside. He offered me one. I waved it off. He exhaled. "I didn't think I'd come back." "You didn't plan to," I said. He nodded. "Everyone made it seem like my life was supposed to be big, so I kept chasing big. Turns out big is expensive." The line was honest in a way our family rarely was. I didn't comfort him. Growth doesn't need pillows. By summer, Mason landed a security guard job at a data center. Not glamorous, not overseas, not Instagram ready, but it was steady. He had a badge, a shift, and a paycheck that didn't depend on fantasy. Mom baked cookies to celebrate. She didn't bake when I moved to Texas. She didn't bake when I bought my condo. Milestones hit different depending on who they belonged to. One weekend, he came to visit me in Texas. The plane ticket was cheap. His suitcase was small. Travel without luxury looks different. Nobody asks for champagne in economy. I drove him through the tech district, glass buildings, biometric doors, rooftop gardens, electric shuttles humming past interns. He stared like it was a foreign country. "You work here?" he asked. "I lead a team here." He blinked, twice. Pride and envy share the same expression when a sibling wears it. At dinner he asked real questions: salary, training, workload, burnout, healthcare, taxes. For once he wasn't comparing, he was learning. Before bed he said, "I didn't know you built all this." "You didn't ask," I said. Silence weighed more than the furniture. The second year back home hit harder than the first. Mason passed his first security exam. Not a big one, but a real one. He framed the certificate, and Mom cried over it like it was a law degree. Relatives came over again. This time they asked about him first, not last. "He's doing better," they said. Better meant acceptable. Acceptable meant forgivable. No one mentioned the house anymore, or the shop, or the cars. Family history deletes losses faster than wins. Mom pulled me aside after dessert. "You saved him," she whispered. I shook my head. "I didn't save him. Consequences did." She looked confused. Mothers of golden sons struggle with cause and effect. On the drive back to my condo, Mason said, "Do you ever think about Dad?" "All the time." "What do you think he'd say about all this?" I thought about the shop, the tools, the bills, the late nights, the legacy that wasn't money but grit. "He'd say there are two kinds of people," I told him. "The ones who inherit struggle and the ones who inherit softness. Struggle pays more in the end." Mason didn't argue. Winter returned. I hosted Christmas for the first time. My condo was small but neat. Minimalist furniture, clean lines, no clutter. Everyone brought dishes. Mom brought nerves. Mason arrived late, wearing work boots and carrying a cheap bottle of wine. He looked tired, but not lost. Tired is fine. Lost isn't. We ate. We talked. We didn't rewrite history, but we didn't avoid it either. After dinner, I handed Mason a small box. Inside was a new study guide for the Security Plus exam and a note that said, "Next step." He read it twice before nodding. No jokes, no bravado, just readiness. Then, the switch. Mom stood and said, "Arden, thank you for hosting. You've built a good life here. Your father would have been proud." Not proud of Mason, proud of me. It didn't erase the past, it didn't rewrite the pattern. But favoritism cracked, even if only for one sentence. And sometimes that's enough to reroute the future. Spring brought job fairs and hiring events. Mason went to all of them and borrowed shirts and shoes that hurt his heels. I watched from the sidelines, not as a rescuer, but as someone finally freed from carrying him. Companies didn't care about his past. They cared about certificates, hours logged, and willingness to start at the bottom. Mason had all three now. Life shrinks men until they fit through normal doors again. Mom bragged less loudly this time. Not because she loved him less, but because she finally understood that bragging doesn't build futures. Work does. One evening after a long day of interviews, Mason sat on my balcony watching traffic blur into neon. "I used to think success was about escape," he said. "New cities, big deals, important people." "What is it now?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not being a burden." It wasn't profound. It was honest. Honesty is rarer in families than forgiveness. We sat there without filling the silence with explanations. Some stories don't need narration. They just need to be lived until they make sense. When he left, he folded his resume instead of rolling it. Small detail. Big shift. Men stop crumpling paper when they stop crumpling their futures. In June, Mason got an offer. Entry-level information security assistant. Not glamorous, not rich, not Dubai-level fantasy, but legitimate. Salary, benefits, PTO, and training reimbursement. Adult things. Mom cried again, but the tears sounded different. Less panic, more release. Relatives sent congratulatory texts. He turned it around, they said. Narratives always simplify the middle. No one mentioned the warehouse, the deli, or the late nights learning why hospitals get hacked. Mason called me at work. "I got it," he said. No yelling, no victory speech, just confirmation that life had rejoined him. "You earned it," I said. He paused. "You were right." About what? He didn't specify. Maybe about consequences. Maybe about work. Maybe about the kind of inheritance daughters receive, responsibility instead of assets. That weekend we ate at a diner we used to visit as kids. No rooftop bars, no imported drinks, just coffee and eggs. Mason paid the bill without announcing it. Men who chase approval announce everything. Men who grow up don't. When I dropped him off, he asked if I'd come home more often. Maybe, I said. Maybe it was a better answer than no. Possibly better than yes. Mom started asking me about my job. Not to compare, not to diminish, just to understand. What do you actually do at work? She asked one evening. I explained threat modeling and incident response using simple words. She nodded like someone finally reading subtitles after years of guessing the plot. Is it stressful? She asked. Not compared to family, I said. She laughed, really laughed. Mothers rarely laugh with daughters, they instruct them. Later, she sat at the table sorting old paperwork from Dad's drawer. Business licenses, tax filings, faded receipts from the shop. She held one for a long time. Your father always said Mason would take over, she whispered, but you're the one who thinks like him. It wasn't a compliment, it was a correction. Legacy shifts quietly. It doesn't need applause. I helped her shred documents. She didn't treat me like labor this time. She treated me like an equal. It wasn't everything, but it was more than I ever expected. Autumn rolled in. Mason passed the second exam and moved into his own place. Small, clean, one bedroom with a view of nothing special. Mom bought him towels. I bought him time. We celebrated with cheap Chinese takeout. Mason raised his plastic cup of soda and said, "To showing up late, but showing up." Mom wiped her eyes again. Her tears had seasons now. On the drive home, she said, "I'm sorry we put so much on you." It wasn't a full apology. But apologies from mothers come in fragments. You thought he needed saving more than I needed support, I said. She didn't deny it. Parents rarely admit favoritism. They just get older and see it. Before dropping her off, she squeezed my hand, not to guilt, not to claim, just to touch. I let her. Some distances close without ceremony. Years later, promotions stacked like quiet bricks. Insurance, retirement, stability, the kind my family once assumed was boring. Stability built the house that Dubai never could. Mason didn't become rich or famous. He didn't travel to impress anyone. He worked. He paid bills. He dated someone nice. He called Mom twice a week. That was enough. One Thanksgiving, Mom looked around my condo and said, "You built a good life, Arden." She didn't whisper it. She didn't say it sideways. She said it like a fact. Mason nodded. Yeah, you really did. Not envy, respect, and that was the ending. No dramatic revenge, no ruined careers, no courtroom inheritance fights, just adulthood rearranged into fairness. Some inherit assets, some inherit struggle. But struggle, when handled correctly, compounds. When the family left that night, I locked the door and made tea. The city hummed outside. Quiet victories don't need witnesses. They just need space to settle. If you liked this story, like and subscribe to or Revenage Tea Stories channel for more. My brother sold everything after Dad died, until karma made him come home.